Hello, dear listeners. This is Arcturus, and you're listening to Escape from the Matrix, the podcast. Today, I want to talk about something fascinating, seeing past lives and how that relates to astral projection. Can you believe it? Two powerful topics woven together. These are subjects I personally love: the ability to visit other dimensions and the mystery of remembering our past incarnations. Let me begin by saying that ever since I heard or read stories about people recalling their past lives, I felt it was true. Somehow, deep inside, I knew this wasn't my first existence on this planet. And when I began having out-of-body experiences and joined an occult society in search of answers, the topic naturally came up. Now, you're free to believe whatever resonates with you. I'm simply sharing what I believe and what I learned from the occult school I was part of. These ideas mainly come from Eastern philosophies, especially Buddhism and Hinduism. According to these traditions, we're all fragments of the divine, like sparks of God, so to speak. These sparks seek to have experiences in the material world, and they undergo a long spiritual evolution. It begins with existing as minerals, possibly for thousands or even millions of years, before evolving into plants. And after another long period, they transition into animals, starting from simpler life forms like insects and gradually evolving into more complex creatures. Eventually, these sparks reach the human kingdom, and that's where we are now. However, once we reach the human stage, something changes. In the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms, evolution happens automatically. Nature guides the process, instinct governs everything, and no conscious effort is required. But now, in the human kingdom, evolution requires our conscious participation. It depends on our choices, on our inner decisions. This stage of evolution demands that we become self-aware, and according to Hindu and Buddhist teachings, time is of the essence, the clock is ticking. So listen to this. These traditions believe that we're given 108 lifetimes as humans to attain self-awareness. That's why meditation necklaces such as the Buddha's mala, which is central in Buddhism, has 108 beads. Each bead symbolizes one human life, one opportunity to awaken. If we fail to reach self-awareness within those 108 lives, we begin to devolve. Devolution is the opposite of evolution. It means being reborn in lower forms of consciousness, first as animals, then as plants, then minerals, until we eventually cease to exist. This process of devolution is said to be the equivalent of hell, not a fiery underworld, but an unimaginable long and painful descent through the lower realms of existence. Now, you don't have to believe this literally. I don't take every word of it as absolute truth myself, but the mystics from the occult society I once belonged to shared a more nuanced view. They said that while you can technically run out of those 108 lives, as long as you're actively working to improve yourself, striving toward greater awareness, the divine law grants you extra lives. Like in a video game, you keep getting more chances as long as you are genuinely trying. The real danger begins when you stop caring about growth, when you abandon the path. That's when devolution sets in for real. I personally resonate with this, though I also believe the rules are shifting. Rules can change. Many mystics agree that we are entering a new era, ascending into a higher dimension where the old laws, like karma and the cycle of rebirth, will eventually dissolve. In fact, I talked about this in my last interview with Jeff Mara at the Jeff Mara podcast. Anyway, this is a vast and deep subject. I'm only scratching the surface here, but the key point is this. If you speak with someone from India or many parts of Asia, they'll likely tell you that past lives are a natural part of their belief system. In the West, especially within Christianity, this concept is typically rejected, largely because it's not found in the canonical Bible. But what most people don't know is that the Gnostic Gospels, ancient Christian texts, just as authentic and as ancient as the official ones, do hint at the belief of reincarnation. Early Christians may have embraced the idea of past lives more than we realize. Now, you might be wondering, where is the connection with astral projection? Well, There are several ways we can remember or access our past lives. Sometimes it happens spontaneously, a sudden memory or vision triggered by an event. For example, you might meet someone for the first time and feel an overwhelming sense of recognition. You can't place them, but you know deep down you've met them before. It's not just a feeling, it's deep, it's intuitive knowing. And sometimes it's more than that. You may even get glimpses, visions with different levels of clarity. These visions can appear like thoughts. What do I mean by that? Take a moment and picture something simple, like the last time you walked down the street. Notice how you can, let's say, see it in your mind. The images, the colors, details. You're not physically seeing it with your eyes, but the imagery is there. In the same way, past life memories can arise as thoughts, but thoughts you didn't consciously create. You might suddenly, let's say, see yourself in ancient Egypt, or walking through a medieval village dressed in period clothing. You weren't trying to imagine that, it just showed up. Some people, especially those with developed clairvoyant abilities, see these memories with even greater clarity and texture, almost as if they are watching a movie with their physical eyes. It becomes more than imagination, it's a direct inner vision. But there's an even more powerful way to experience past lives, and that's through astral projection. I've seen many glimpses of my own past lives in the astral realms, and let me tell you, it's one of the most incredible experiences you can have. In the astral world, everything is in full color, vivid and alive. You can literally travel back to these lives and interact with people, places and events without changing the past, just observing or reliving them from a higher perspective. Recently, my partner and I visited a Templar fortress in Catalonia, Spain, and a few days later I became lucid in a dream. I woke up inside a dream fully aware and realized I wasn't just dreaming. I was in another time. I was wearing clothing from the medieval era, standing among stone walls and scaffolding as if a castle was being built around me. I was speaking in Portuguese, and I felt an overwhelming inner knowing. I was a Portuguese Templar. Even though the real-world trigger was a Templar site in Spain, it unlocked a memory tied to a different place and time. That's how it often works. Certain locations or energies can activate memories buried deep within the soul. And this wasn't the first time something like this happened to me, because dreams take place in the astral plane, and from that plane we can access our past lives. There are many techniques to do this consciously, and one of the most well-known is visiting the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are said to be a vast etheric library that exists in the astral realms, a living archive containing every thought, action, emotion, and event from the past, present, and even potential futures. Esoteric teachers like Helena Blavatsky and Edgar Cayce, often called America's sleeping prophet, spoke about the Akashic Records in great detail. And yes, they can be visited. I have been there myself. So, I wanted to share with you a powerful story, an experience where I witnessed a significant moment from a past life, crystal clear and even more vivid through the astral plane. It all happened while I was living in Guanajuato, Mexico. The occult society I belonged to had a temple there, constructed according to sacred geometry, and half of it was underground and the other half above ground, aligned precisely with the stars to receive cosmic energy. Any spiritual practice performed within the temple was incredibly powerful. So one day, I suggested to my spiritual guide that we hold a collective astral projection session inside the temple, with the intention of being shown past lives. The master agreed, and so we prepared the space, brought in the mattresses, and spent the night there. There were about 8 of us, and after a powerful activation led by the master, we all lay down and began the astral projection techniques, just like the ones I teach in my books and courses. Now, let me tell you, sleeping inside the temple was a bit uncomfortable, which, as it turns out, worked in my favor. I drifted into the perfect state. My body became heavy and numb, yet my mind remained fully awake, and this allowed me to successfully separate from my physical body. Once I was in the astral plane, everything changed. The temple looked 10 times larger. It was vast and cathedral-like. I had to run to reach the center, where the master was already waiting for me. His astral form looked just like his physical self. And I told him, "Master, I'm here. please show me a past life. And he looked at me and simply said, look over there. And he pointed to an altar that we had inside the monastery. And that altar had a Buddha statue and a set of curtains behind the statue. And in the Astral version, those curtains just opened as if I were in a theater. And what I saw was astonishing. I saw a Gothic cathedral and bells were tolling. And suddenly I wasn't just observing anymore. I was inside the vision. And so I was wondering where I was and what was I observing. And I saw a man dressed in period clothes. And you get a lot of telepathy in these kind of past life regressions in the astral plane. So basically what I felt is that this guy was like a messenger. And so I asked him what was happening, and he answered me in Italian. And yet I understood every word perfectly. Now, just let me tell you that I did study Italian in the past and even reached an advanced level at one point. But I began to forget it because you don't practice it. But this wasn't about language skills, because in the astral plane there have been many times where I have spoken to people from different places that don't speak English, even creatures that I don't know if they speak any earthly language. And I can tell you that communication is telepathic. For instance, I in one of my books I tell how I communicated in Bulgarian to a person who was in coma, and this person doesn't speak any English or any Spanish. And every time I would speak in Spanish, it just sounded like Bulgarian, like he was getting instantly translated. And the same thing happened in the way back. Like when she spoke to me in Bulgarian, it was like translated to me instantly in Spanish. And that's how it works in the astral plane. So that's a very curious thing. So anyway, the man explained that there was a royal wedding taking place. And just then an entourage arrived, and it was knights and nobles dressed in blue, and they had their breastplates adorned with large crosses, and some wore uniforms featuring the fleur-de-lis. Now, the fleur-de-lis appears in many European coats of arms, but it originally belonged to the Merovingian dynasty of France, and still this was clearly Italy. So that was like another mystery. And then I saw him, a white-haired, bearded man who I immediately recognized as the king. And beside him stood a young, handsome noble. He had like curly hair, and I just had this strong intuition that was either me or my brother in that life. And I sensed it was my brother. But everything I'm describing to you was crystal clear, and even beyond that, because all of the people and all of the objects, like the cathedral, everything had like this aura, in around, like an edge. And it's very interesting because the aura exists in the fourth dimension, and so clairvoyants can sometimes see the aura of people. And in this vision, it was as if it was complete. You see the normal things that you see in the 3D world, but I was also seeing the aura. So it was like extremely rich. It was like 4-dimensional past life regression. And then in the blink of an eye, the scene shifted, and I was now inside a building attached to the cathedral. And there were people working, and they were writing with ink and feather pens. And I stood there for about 10 minutes. It actually got a little boring just watching them copy documents, but I remained captivated by the vividness of the scene, the antique clothing, and the soft, colorful auras surrounding everything and everyone. Like I said, it was a hyper-realistic 4D world, completely immersive. And then a woman arrived, and she felt like an older cousin, and she looked exactly like someone I know in this life. In fact, I'm fairly sure it was the same soul. And she greeted me warmly in Italian and gave me a heartfelt hug. And at that moment, I woke up. The next morning, we gathered to share our experiences, and interestingly, no one else remembered anything. Maybe they had experiences, maybe they astrally projected but forgot about it. And as you know, I've always had a natural talent for astral projection, so I was the only one with a vivid account. And I shared my experience with the group, and the master confirmed that I had witnessed a past life as a noble in Italy, likely near Milan, he said, and that the wedding was actually mine. And for some time, I searched online trying to find the cathedral I saw in the vision. And then one night, I had another spontaneous lucid dream, and I found myself in the same place. I became fully aware, and I walked around examining every detail, the door, the facade, the decoration, trying to memorize it all. And although the dream ended as I tried to step inside the cathedral, the imagery was vivid enough for me to do a successful search. Eventually, I found it. It matched the Cathedral of Lucca in Tuscany, Italy. So, in 2024, I went on vacation to Italy with my parents, and I made sure that our itinerary included Lucca. And when I arrived, I was stunned. It was exactly the same cathedral I had seen in the astral world. Even the adjacent building where I had seen the scribes writing documents was there, and it's now a museum. Although the museum was closed, I was able to actually enter inside the cathedral. And this time, I walked through its doors in waking life with full awareness that I have been there before. Fascinating story, right? I love talking about it. And the truth is, everyone has the potential to see their past lives through the astral plane. It's like a muscle, you know? You just have to train it, and that's exactly what I teach in my online course. So, if you're curious about exploring your own past lives, you've got options. You can join my course on astral projection and start developing that inner vision, or if you prefer a guided experience, I also offer online past life regression sessions using therapeutic techniques to help you access those deeper soul memories. And you can find all of the details on my website, escapefromthematrix.com. This is Arcturus, and you've been listening to Escape from the Matrix. And now, let me ask you one last time. Are you asleep or are you awake?